An original story, The Empty Man. Soaring through the mystic night, the sensation of a horrific event lingers in the air of Xanar city. A corrupting shadow hides amidst the town engulfed in darkness. The sky, void of any bright stars, seemed like it was generating an aberrant and monstrous fate for the unlucky Dave. That's how our poor man was feeling at that time, while walking through the suburban area of Xanar very late at night. These were very strange emotions for a guy like him, because overall his life was great. Sure, he wasn't the richest, smartest, nor the most handsome on the planet, but he didn't care about that. Who does nowadays? Dave was able to achieve the job of his dreams, being a biological researcher, and was paid fairly well, enough to have no economic problems. His family loved him, and he had a very caring, loving husband. Nothing traumatic in his existence happened. He had a great childhood, was always happy, and also genuinely a good person. So why did that haunting feeling that it was all going to be gone very soon persist? He didn't know the answer to that, but he was unwilling to sacrifice one of the happiest moments of his life due to some unusual paranoias. He was finally getting married, and he couldn't wait for much longer. The man turned left from Diddle Street, entering Wallace Street, the road where he lived in. He proceeded walking slowly, like he didn't have a care in the whole world. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake off this terrible sentiment of dread that had been following him all night. Something very wrong was going to happen tonight. The presence of a thing that shouldn't exist made itself bigger by the second. Dave couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was up. Something far worse than he could have ever imagined. The poor soul. He carefully continued moving towards his home, looking frantically in every direction, worried that a dangerous presence might be lurking nearby. After a meticulous analysis, Dave concluded that nothing appeared to be spying or to be following him, although he could swear the closer he got to his home, the more his body started shaking uncontrollably. The unfortunate guy had no idea what was going to happen to him, but he still wanted to go home as fast as he could at all cost. He he felt safe in there. When he finally got in front of his house, he realized that this unfathomable anguish didn't transpire from his home. No, it was coming from his neighbor's house. Before retiring in the secure walls of his place, he felt the need to check on his friend John, his neighbor, due to his compassionate nature. He also did this in view of the fact that John had been acting abnormally for well over a year by now. The moment he got closer to his friend's house, he immediately noticed something very odd. The front door was left completely open. Why the hell was it left there like that? He didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. It's true that John was a sleepwalker, but this? He never did anything like that before. Lately, John was extremely paranoid, constantly making bad life choices, and acted excessively aggressive to everyone he met. He was really worried for him. Maybe his friend was just so stressed that he forgot to close the door after taking out the trash, although there was no visible trash bin outside. Part of Dave desperately wanted to get out of there, go home, and call the police. However, his kind spirit pushed him to go check on his companion. Even though what drove him the most to carry on wasn't that, it was his curiosity. Often the best trait of his personality, sometimes the worst one he possessed. The instant he took the first step to get to the door, a breeze passed through his body. This wasn't a simple breeze though. It was freezing, gelid, ice cold. It punctuated and penetrated his soft skin. It was like something horrible was crawling under it. This made his whole body shiver and left him weak, petrified. Persistent, after a few seconds, he entered John's home, hoping to find his friend alive and well. A corridor preceded the living room, which was the last room, at the end of the hall. Dave started making his way towards that area. Immediately, when he tried looking around, a terror that shook his very essence made itself alive. There were words written on the walls, gathering them all in one message. This is what it communicated. It's coming for me. It ruined my life, and now it wants to claim my soul. Trying to find an explanation for this, Dave says to himself that his friend must have gone insane. The only logical explanation. Still, he can't help but succumb to this sensation of desperation. Scared down to his core, the man brings out all of his courage to enter the living room. What the heck possessed him to do that? Well, maybe sometimes it's just destiny that condemns people to gruesome fates. There he was, the good old John, standing in the middle of the room, still like a rock, with his back turned to Dave. The problem is, John wasn't the only living thing in that space. And I word it like this because I don't think I can call that nightmare human. That hellish creature couldn't be something generated from Mother Earth, nor God, if he even exists at this point. No, that disgusting, aberrant monster simply couldn't be from this planet. The moment it saw the blighted guy, it immediately began staring at him with those soulless, enormous, evil and veiny eyes. The creature was about 8 feet tall. Its arms were inexplicably cut off, just constantly bleeding on the ground. Its smile, that twisted, toothless, unflinching smile. It would have been the worst thing they had ever seen if it wasn't for another part of that wretched thing. That demon. It had two flesh stars, open wide open, which occupied all the space from its stomach up to its shoulders. Inside of them there was nothing, a void, and not just the simple absence of any organ. It was a total endless, ancient, malevolent darkness. It was like a hollow piece of the universe had been put in there. Suddenly, that unholy devil began grinning even harder. For every second Dave observed it, the less that creature had any trace of humanity left in it. Not that it had much to begin with. Inexplicably, John approached the monster, standing directly in front of it. What happened right after scared Dave for the rest of his life, traumatizing him worse than anything other could have. John, oh the poor John, lost John. He started making his way in the caving void of that thing, an endless pit of the darkest abysses. Arm per arm, Leg for leg, one at a time, he entered the creature's body, standing in the nothingness. Then, while watching his friend Dave, he closed the two doors of the monster's abdomen, vanishing forever into that abhorrent living being. For the entirety of the event, that demon stared right into Dave's eyes. The man, he was utterly and completely damaged to his very core. He felt his consciousness shattering in a million pieces, his brain liquidating at the mere thought of what had just occurred. Luckily, his body reacted on its own. Dave's body sprinted out of that house of madness as fast as it could. He was sure that the thing would follow him, but it didn't. It just continued to stand there, creepily staring at him. As soon as he got home, he closed all doors and windows, called the police, and hid in the closet, scared like a little kid. He should have finally felt some kind of relief. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. An inexplicable dread followed him and nested itself in Dave's organism. The man had this sensation that the monster he encountered only a few minutes ago didn't really let him go. His gut told him that the creature was still lurking around in the dark, somewhere outside of his house, looking, observing him, as if it knew his exact position, even through the thick marble walls of the building. A few minutes later, the police arrived in front of his house. After peeking through the window to assure himself that it was really the police, he opened the door and talked with them. Obviously, he couldn't tell them the truth, otherwise, they surely would have put him in an asylum. He ended up telling them that he saw his friend's body unconscious on the ground. He was about to wake him up, but he suddenly heard some footsteps coming from the first floor. He said that it was possibly an armed burglar, so he got scared and went home to call the police. After he finished the story, they told him that they found nobody and no one else in the house, but he already knew that nothing living remained in his friend's house. It had already left. Dave declared that he had no idea of what happened, so the police asked him a few more questions before letting him go and filing a report of the case. Dave was, without question, the main suspect of the case, but since there was no proof to arrest him, they had to leave him alone. Hours passed, hours spent on trying to sleep, but to no avail. As the night spreaded its neurotic, all-encompassing void, Dave's sanity slowly began to disappear, bit by bit, clinging desperately on its dear life.